Hey guys, this is Miss Gardner. Um, just in case you either missed yesterday or was having trouble with the notes from yesterday, we are going to finish talking or kind of re-talk about 9-5, which are angles of a circle. Now, if you missed yesterday, you need to get those guided notes. I've placed those on the shelf in the back of STEM. So you can just go grab you a copy, watch this video, pop your headphones in, and get these notes down. Now, this is going to be a very brief review, so if you were here yesterday, you can rewatch this if you were confused. If not, go ahead and move on because you will have to do practice 9.5 on Canvas by tomorrow. So, without any further ado, let's talk about angles of a circle. So now, we took a quiz. You should have known how to do this, but in case you were confused, it says to fill or find all missing angles and arc measures, be prepared to justify each step. I want to go ahead and preface this a little bit. If you hear my dog in the background, I am so sorry. I will move if she becomes too distracting. But she's so cute. Anyway, so fill in all missing angles. Well, notice that all of the angles in this shape are central angles. Their vertex is in the middle. So if their vertex is in the middle, right here at L, that means that the measure of the arc equals the measure of the angle. So knowing all of this, we can see that JI is 50 degrees. So it means that J, the measure of angle JLI, has to equal 50 degrees as well. Same kind of thought process here. Because angle GLH is 70, means the measure of the arc GH, right here on the outside of the circle, has to also be 70 degrees. Now here's the step where everyone got confused and they were like, Miss Gardner, how in the world do I figure anything else out? Well, let's not forget that a diameter goes through the center and cuts the circle in half. So in this case, KH is a diameter. And if a diameter cuts the circle in half, we know that the arc from K all the way to H has to be 180 degrees. Well, if a portion of KH is 70 degrees, we know that from G to H, but the whole thing has to be 180 degrees. By that logic, we know that this arc here from K to G has to be the difference between 180 and 70, which is 110 degrees. Going back to this idea here, the measure of angle KLG would also have to be 110 degrees. But let's not forget that JG, can't talk, is also a diameter. So we know by this exact same process that the measure of arc KJ has to be 70 degrees because 70 plus 110 is 180 degrees. That's the easy part about circles, guys, is it either has to be 180 or it has to be 360. So this here is 70 degrees. Now all we have to do, KH is also a diameter again, so that means whatever's on this other side here, so let's look, I have 70 and I have 50. So what does this missing portion here, right here, have to be in order to make the whole arc add up to 180 degrees, it has to be 60 degrees. So that means the arc is also 60 degrees. But let's pay close attention to one thing, guys. Going way back. What kind of angles are these right here? What kind of angle is this 70 and this 70? Do we remember? Those are called vertical angles, and vertical angles are always congruent. Okay, that's important. So, let's review some key vocabulary here. Key vocab is that a chord is a segment whose endpoints lie on the circle. So A, B. So a diameter is a chord, but a chord is not always a diameter. Whoops, sorry guys. Similarly, a secant is a line that intersects a circle at 2 points. So we can see here, L is a secant. Remember, difference between a secant and a chord. Secant's a line, chord's a segment. Segments have endpoints, lines do not. Moving right along, a tangent is a line in the same plane as a circle, but only touches in exactly 1 point. So this is a tangent. M is getting really close to the circle, touches the circle in exactly 1 spot, and then just happily goes on its merry way. And then lastly, the point of tangency is the point where that circle, and that was a poor color choice for that, so let's do this dark blue here. It's the point where it touches the tangent and the circle. It's a little bit hard to see, but you guys will make do. So that was the quick recap of vocab. Now, here are the rules that we talked about yesterday. And the gist of it is, if it's on the circle, then the measure of the angle is equal to half the measure of the arc. And I know that's kind of weird and kind of hard to see there, but the measure of the angle is half the measure of the arc. On the circle, half the measure of the arc. So you can see in this example here, if this arc right here is 120, well, the angle 1, is half the measure of the arc. Half of 120 is 60. And vice versa over here. If this arc goes from here to here, and 2, that arc 2, or angle 2, is on the circle, and we know that this is 200, then the measure of the angle has to be 100 degrees. Okay? On the circle. Has to be touching on the circle, Now, if the measure, or if the vertex, paying attention to that word there, vertex of the angle is inside the circle, then the measure of the angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. Half the sum of arcs. Okay, so notice here, we want to find, let me make my pen a little bit smaller. We want to find this angle here in the middle, angle 1. And we know that this arc is 86 and this arc is 44. Well, these lines intersect, these secants intersect inside. Angle 1's vertex is inside. See how that kind of makes a plus sign in the middle? Plus. So we have to do the sum of the 2 arcs. And then lastly, we have outside of the circle. And let's make that a little bit bigger. Outside the circle. So we're taking half the sum. So if it's outside the circle, the measure of the angle is equal to half the, you guessed it, difference of the arcs. Okay, half the difference. So notice here, angle 1 is outside the circle. Well, angle 1 touches the circle here and makes this arc of 78 degrees, but it also touches it here and makes that arc of 202. So we take half the difference means subtracting, and we get 62 degrees. So that was just a quick rundown. Make sure you get those from the guided notes. Now, examples. First thing you ask yourself on these examples, where is, or what am I trying to find? That's the first thing I have to do. What in the world am I trying to find? Where is question mark? Well, question mark just so happens to be on the arc GH. I'm trying to find GH. So let's find the measure of arc GH. Well, we got to go see if I have an angle. So here's my angle G. Right here. You have to decide if angle HGF, is that, and it's 60 degrees, is that on, inside, or outside of the circle? In this case, it is on the circle. So if it's on the circle, the angle is half the arc. Half. The arc has to be the big one. So in order to go from 60 to the arc, I have to double it. So when I double 60, I know that the arc has to be 120 degrees. Okay, so now let's look at this other example over here. First, figure out what they're asking. They're asking arrows pointing to the angle, right? What's this? So they want you to find the measure of angle CBA. Okay, find the measure of angle CBA. Well, wait a minute. The arc that's facing CBA, where's that at? Well, that arc is BA. But we don't know BA. We don't know this minor arc BA. But what do we know? What we do know is that the major arc from B to A is 270 degrees. Well, like I said before, it's either got to be 180 or 360. Look at the shape here. What happened? I made a complete circle. It's a really ugly circle, but I made a complete circle. So, if the major arc is 270, what added with 270 will give me 360 degrees, and that is 90. So remember that the measure of the angle is half the measure of the arc. What is half of 90? So the measure of angle CBA is 45 degrees. Now, let's look at some more examples here. Examples inside the circle. Well, they're wanting you to find, what are they wanting you to find? First, you got to find that out. Question mark is at angle FEG. So let's find FEG. Okay, well remember, when the angles are in the middle, they make a plus sign. So that's when I have to do half the sum. Half the sum makes the plus sign in the middle. So what arcs do I have here? I have 124. The other arc that I have is 90, so I'm going to find their sum and divide by 2. Take the average. That has to equal this angle measure that we're trying to find. So when I add these together and divide by 2, if you've done a calculator, you'll get that this is 107 degrees. So the measure of angle FEG is 107 degrees. Now, let's look at the second example over here. Okay, so I have these angles in the middle. Okay, these angles in the middle, they're making the plus sign. I'm trying to find the arc BC. Find the arc BC. Well, remember that in order to find this angle here, I have to To find the angle, what equals 84 degrees? Well, I'm going to take half of